Welcome to the panel Trans on Screen. This panel is hosted by TranScreen, the Amsterdam Transgender Film Festival, as part of TransPride. My name is Laura, I'm part of the organization of TranScreen, and I will be your host today. I'm joined by Rijksen, filmmaker and part of the Transketeers, and Badi, performance artist, writer and activist. Recently the documentary Disclosure came out on Netflix, and it received quite some attention online. In this documentary, many prominent transgender actors, directors and other public figures discussed transgender representation through the years. The documentary and the subjects discussed in this documentary were the inspiration for today's panel. Since we only have 45 minutes, we will not be able to show the documentary, but we will be screening the short film 1,000 Cuts by Beck Gilmer-Osborne. The video was originally an art installation, but received quite some controversy when it was displayed. It is a 3-channel video compilation of cisgender actors playing transgender roles in popular film and television. The work is intended to confront and unpack transgender cinematic tropes and the absence of transgender people in mainstream cinema due to systemic violence and transphobia. After the short film, we will dive further into the discussion on transgender representation on screen, but first, 1,000 Cuts by Beck Gilmer-Osborne.
So I went to a psychiatrist who told me I was a man.
I cannot have them find out that we are dating again.
Listen, I need to talk to you about something. There's a big change going on.
You mean my penis?
Well, you don't have to say it out loud.
I know you're having trouble believing, but I had to do what I did. After I realized the truth about myself, how I always felt unnatural, how I always had to prove myself by hustling every girl I met. I hated it.
You hated it?
Every minute. You were so good at it.
Get your hand off my dick, buddy!
A few things have been added, and 1 or 2 subtractions.
God, it's an exciting game.
Hello?
Do you know who this is?
After my operation.
I believe this is the gentleman I met Saturday evening.
Every woman has a right to a little mystery.
And there's Daddy.
Who you talking to? My mom.
A nickel for any time a girl dumped me, disappeared for 5 years, and came back as a guy, I'd have a nickel.
Oh, I don't know.
What can I do for you, Private Winchell? I need a change of scenery.
What do you say now, Weave? Well, George, at least this time you are smart enough to hire a woman to play the part. This ain't no woman!
Beg your pardon.
Number 90, Robert Muldoon.
They have women agents?
More or less.
I had a great pair of hands.
Audrey Kirk.
Yes, you did.
Agency business.
Yeah.
You know what?
They don't deserve our money.
You homophobic asshole.
That every young man at the time aspires to.
Danke.
Tu fais quoi?
Do you realize what would happen if every man in the country that wanted to wear women's clothes or felt like a woman went to their doctors and wanted a sex change?
So, are you like a male model or a female model? Well, it's not defined by binary constructs.
What's your name?
Where's the best place for me to get a used
Albert.
car?
Your real name.
Oh, yeah.
That was a guy. Guy dressed up like a Sheila. Look at that.
So you're like our brother?
Would a real woman be missing these?
Sort of.
Why sort of?
Cálmate, güero.
Because I was born in a girl's
You're a
body.
badass now. Stop crying.
Very much if you could
find the time during
Salutations, gentlemen. Venus Van Dam at your pleasure.
big old Mr. Kanesh.
You're a phony. A fake.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a man.
Coffee is empty. A lie.
In a woman's body.
Before she came to our little clinic, she was no transsexual.
There they were, Samantha's friendly neighborhood pre-op transsexual hookers. Half man, half woman, totally annoying.
So you say she was definitely a man?
Yes.
Okay, how did you know that she was a man?
Because her hands were as big as Andre the Giant's. And she had an Adam's apple as big as her balls.
Listen here. Why don't you just light your tampon below your boxer part? Because it's the only bang you're ever gonna get, sweetheart.
Get one thing straight, please get I'm no longer caught. Let's get mine out. You put it in your mouth. It's the most attractive.
Your dick?
Like that one. You're not fucking with you.
Yeah, Mom always figured Danielle.
That's why I'm going to be honest with you about something else, too.
You mean Edward?
I'm not who you think I am.
Whatever.
In 1968, I had an operation. Until that time, I lived life as part-time stenographer and mild-mannered housewife, Anna Maria.
It's amazing the changes you can make for a few $1,000.
Bob Johnson? Hi, Tom.
Imagine what Holiday Inns will look like when we spend $1 billion.
But having raped Rusty's manhood, I must now complete the cycle and seduce his girl. Only then will my victory be complete. Thus exuding power over both sexes, and indeed over life itself.
Do you know why?
I don't know. I do know that I have to do it. When I feel this person, this woman inside me, raging to get out, I can't stop her.
What's interesting about my character, what I love, is that it's just like Mark's character and America's character, the people that feel different from everyone else and are still honoring themselves. And I think that's a lot, you know, that's sort of the theme of this show, is honoring yourself and being true to who you are. And I love being a part of that.
Really good to see you. It's been such a long time.
Not long enough.
Gwen.
Did you just call me?
I called you Gwen.
I asked Mom to buy me dresses. But he wouldn't let her, so I just played dress up in her closet. She thought it was cute.
Okay.
But Dad found out.
What made you decide to?
I just always felt like I was different. Like I was walking around in the wrong body.
So am I.
I tried therapy, I tried hypnosis. And one day I was at the barber looking at a Playboy and I thought, Bert, let's do it.
Wow. Well, you know, for what it's worth, they did a great job. Did they do the whole thing?
Oh, yeah. I'm all woman.
Of course.
You can't turn frogs into handsome princes with a kiss.
Oh.
Even if you can turn a man into a woman, it doesn't mean to say they're ever going to live happily ever after, does
I'm
it?
also really happy to be back. Happy to be happy.
Because they raised me as a boy.
This isn't going to weird you out so much you can't deal with me, is it, Max? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
That just sort of happens.
Let's just face it. You don't want to be with me, so why do you keep acting like you do?
Look, I know it's that confusing, right?
Wendy?
No, I don't want to.
Oh, come on.
I don't want to.
Reverse when you like it.
Frank, stop it.
Two and you love it. Come on.
I don't want to. Stop it, Frank.
What's the matter?
I don't want to. Don't you understand? Frank, stop it. Stop it, Frank. I don't like games.
Hey.
Don't you fucking touch me.
Liz, just relax.
Come on, I've done pretty well. I haven't called you Melanie once since you transitioned, okay? So ease up. But honestly, Adam, that's who you were in my heart for so long.
When those girls kick in,
And I've got a
take out my
floppy
organs.
appendage between my legs, which keeps me from wearing pencil skirts.
Are you serious?
We all have
It's
our
something I
flaws.
wanted to do for a long time. But it wasn't until I saw your movie that I realized I have to take action. Goodbye, penis.
This hearing is not about the politics of gender. It's about where to house him.
It's extremely derogatory to refer to my client using male pronouns.
You have my sincere apology, but biologically, your client is a man.
My client will be singled out for abuse in a male facility.
What?
I don't understand what we're doing here. This pretending.
Obviously, I am your worst nightmare.
Why didn't you tell me you were pre-op? You should have told me! I'm not some queer!
I just want to be with you, Dom. I'm sorry.
Shut up!
I didn't think I was your promise.
Try that again. I don't want a girl with a dick, okay? I'm not gay, okay? I'm not into that.
She lived as a boy for 1 month to prepare for the role of Tina Brandon. A true story of a girl living as a boy in Nebraska.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have come a long way.
It's what I have to work with.
That was 1,000 Cuts by Beck Gilmer-Osborne, a confrontation of cisgender actors playing trans characters on screen. Before we head into the discussion, I want to let the viewers at home know that there will be a Q&A towards the end of the panel. People in the audience here can ask questions, but if you have any questions at home for the panel, you can post them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are at TranScreen on all platforms. Just find the last post and respond to it with your question, and we might be able to respond to it. To the panel, welcome Chris, welcome Mala. Would you first please introduce yourself, Chris?
Yes, my name is Chris Rijksen. I am a filmmaker together with Bart Peters and Jonah Lamers. We are the 3 Transketeers. And I'm a trans guy, Bart and Joe as well. So we are the Transketeers, therefore. And we make stories about gender diversity, but also creating new narratives for the present we are living in right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Mala Badia. I'm just an Eco-Feminine performance artist, political activist, also this activism. I'm working with the Queer Refugee Group. So we are trying to give safe space to trans and queer refugees in the Netherlands. Also, I'm a writer. I write some articles, some long articles, especially about transness, queerness, and all the intersections going with. Yeah, voila.
Thank you. Yeah, we just saw the documentary compilation 1,000 Cuts, which just shows a lot of images of cis people playing transgender characters, and the people at home could not see the people here, but we were all just trying not to scream. Chris, could you mention why it is an issue when we see all these cisgender actors playing trans characters?
Apart from the fact that the stories and the edit we saw was continuation or like a compression of all violence and heavy things and unlove, which makes me enraged. I still feel it. I have is the fact that cis actors were playing these roles of trans people, playing the narratives of trans people. Gives space to an erasure of the narrative of trans people. Especially when they win prizes for this, as you saw in the last shot of Boys Don't Cry, the actress wins the prize, and then we are reinforced with this narrative like, oh yeah, but it's a woman all along. We're still, and this idea of trans people, trans women being a man in a dress, trans man being a woman all along. It's such a persistent idea, and we don't have to reiterate it. And I really hope we can stop that.
Yeah. So I completely agree. As I mentioned earlier, the inspiration for this discussion was the recent documentary Disclosure, in which they also, a lot of these images they discussed there, and they also discussed the issues with this imaginary. Mala, so we discussed some earlier about transgender representation, and also that some people don't receive the representation that they should receive, and some images are just not shown. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, I think that the media or cinema or movies in general, like, they are looking for some specific transness. What the media transness looking for? Because like they are just trying to put us on color, and trans people, they are like this, and trans people, they are like this. So like here they are just like hiding the diversity on transness and trans people, and they're like going on invisibility of diversity on trans people. And also from other perspective, that here in Europe or in the USA, the scene is dominated by the media in general, dominated by cis men and cis people. So to talk about trans issues, it's have always to pass toward cisness. So what cis domination to the domain of France want to show people like trans people. For me, when I talk about my experience, I doesn't see myself as represented on the media at all, as a refugee, as trans refugee, and also all the time they want to show refugees is going to be this dramatic views, the people crossing the forest, you know, all these things, and to focus on our reality, on the violence we live every day. This is really not such on the media, because the media is showing what the system wants to be up there. And yes, so I think like till now there is no space for trans people on the media, just on conditions of cisness, of how they want us to be there, and hiding all our identities. Like, I'm not just trans person, I am person of color, I am Moroccan, I am refugee, I'm working class. All these intersections, it cannot be represented in the media, because the media is representing the global system that is hiding us, oppressing us, and make us live everyday violence, everyday invisible.
And the transgender representation we see on screen in films and television is a reference to cisness instead of showing an authentic trans narrative. What they also mention in the documentary is that there's this paradox of visibility, where nowadays, over the last years, you've seen an insurgence of trans characters in film and especially in television series. But you also see that there's still a lot of violence against transgender people, and especially transgender people of color. They call this like the visibility paradox. So there's more visibility, but also more vulnerability in that. And I think that, as you mentioned, we should acknowledge these.
It's about rich visibility they want. And like if we talk about yesterday, it was really like historic moments, which is like the march against violence against trans and queer, black trans and queer people. It doesn't say that much media as we say on the gay pride, like example, or on the pride everywhere, like taking picture to gay people kissing each other. But like when it's about black trans lives, no one's care. So this means that the system doesn't care about our lives. And the media doesn't care about our lives. They are just like want to show some specific points, like gay kissing each other, or some drag queens, happy drag queens. But our reality, our life, the violence we live every day, the murder we live every day, we doesn't show it on the media. Like trans people, they get killed every year. We never saw this on the media. We can see it on the Trans Remembrance when we are like crying for our community die. But like to show because the media is, I think, it's representation of the reality. What's going on in our reality? What we live as people, we saw it on the media. When the media it's far away from our reality, we cannot talk about like just media or like the media of justice, that the media who transfer the reality and the truth of our community. It doesn't mean like we all only live the trauma, so we only live the sadness. We also have happiness, etc. But like which representation to our community? Because we are not just these happy people. We are also these sad girls, these depressed girls. These people get killed. These people live in everyday racism, everyday transphobia, everyday violence. So, and I think like to make the change or like go for it, it's the art or the media. It's very important. It's very important to show these things. So yeah, voila.
What I think is interesting is that we have now YouTube for about since 2008, 2009. It's really going there, coming through everyone, and YouTube and social media as well. We have both our Instagrams, which makes everyone a producer of media, which in theory at least. And you see, or I see, that a lot of trans people, a lot of queer people who have these views, who say like, this is the issue, we have to change, we have to show the complexity, we have to tell a new narrative, but we don't get into these institutions of national public televisions. So we're gonna start our own. We started the Transketeers because of this. We said, okay, nobody's waiting for us, nobody's searching for us, let's do this. We're just gonna start, and we found allies, we found foundations and people who wanted to support us. TranScreen has been a supporter since day one, but it's all like, you have to start from the ground up. And then, as you saw also, the visibility of trans people has like supercharged in the last 10 years, last 15 years. And I think YouTube is a great factor in this, because then suddenly journalists and people who are like digging for stories, they can search and they can see these trans guys who upload their videos and show their physical changes, have their communities, and then they're like, oh, we have access to these extremely interesting stories. Okay, we can grab the stories, but we have to flat it down and make it accessible for all the people who don't know shit about this. And that's the part that enrages me so much. Like the dumbing it down, the not taking the time to show and let somebody be something else than their transition. And luckily we're seeing more of this. And of course but it's also slow. so let's speed it up. And I think, but the thing that we sort of can do it ourselves, but we are still not given so much of the podium. And there are people, of course, working on this inside. And you have Anne Plus, and you have Manu Rijmers, who is a writer, and all these queer people working in the system. But it's all like, they're receiving so much pushback and so much pressure, and yeah, it's tiring.
People making the decisions who have to make the decision to.
And also it's about the people who are hiding from the system and hiding from the invisible people and invisible trans people. I mean, like the people on the bottom, the people like, I mean, like people who don't want them to be on the media. They don't want them to speak up. They doesn't want to give them a voice. Like when we called me for this interview and I just checked the website, and the first thing I say is the gay man who had racist comments about refugees. And this guy is still visible on the media. And all, like, I doesn't mean the guy, but I mean like all these people who are dominating the media, they doesn't give voices to refugees, trans refugees. Doesn't give voices to sex workers, trans sex workers, or whatever, you know? And also like the points you talk about, like when we create our media, like by social media, and you say like, the cuteness of trans people, like going like, we can speak for ourselves, because also we are tired of like how the media treats us, the questions media treats us. Like I will give you an example, like as non-binary gender confirmed person, I always being on the media, they ask about my pronouns, they don't fucking give shit about my pronouns. They don't respect this. And also, they have always to give you this, oh, you are not man, you are not woman. They are not really like, want to make your identity as non-binary as valid identity. So like this, yeah, you know, like there's like lots of
because
things going on.
And then what's really interesting with this very specific example of language and inclusion is that as soon as anyone says, oh, I would rather be addressed as they, which is totally fine. We can do it grammarly, we can do it in speech. It takes maybe a little more effort, but please do it. You are a kind person. But then they say, well, but it's really difficult. It's like, you know what's really difficult? Explaining this every time to anyone I see.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if everyone would just say, like, oh, of course, we can make this effort. But that's like a bridge too far. And it's such a... It would be so graceful if we could really... If there could be producers, editors, directors who say, like, yes, let's do this. It's the space we create. We want to tell the stories of those people, so we want to give them the space to actually see them.
I think what the documentary Disclosure shows really well, and what you can also see in 1,000 Cuts, is that the people who have the power to make these decisions are the same people. They are white cis people who are making these decisions, and you can see that trickle down into the system, and that's why you get images such as we just saw in this short film, the images that just make you like ball up in a ball of rage. So I imagine that both of you produce art from a trans perspective. I imagine that's also because these systems are still in place that have ownership of the great narrative that the most people see. Could you comment on like how that maybe struggle is to make art in a system that doesn't want to give you a place?
Yeah. I think that if you are making things, making work, you are always you are always producing eggs nobody likes or nobody wants or nobody thinks they need, but they need them. They do. We cannot live on draaiorgels alone.
What's mean this?
This motorized vehicle with the musical like automaton, which is
exactly
which is considered typically Dutch.
Yeah,
and so I think by making things, by making art, you are already a bit like pushing into the comfort zone, like creating space for yourself. And it is, I think I can only talk for myself, I think, because it's such a difficult world to navigate, and at the same time I've gone to the art academy in both The Hague and Amsterdam. I've had these master classes. I am very privileged. I have this network here. I can speak both English and Dutch. I can navigate myself around the world even, and so I don't know if I can say something about if it would be easier or I don't know. It's such a strange question for me, but it's hard. But I don't know if it would be easier if I would be cisgender. You know, I cannot reflect on this. But it's the system is not designed for me. Like if I fill in a form and I want to acknowledge my non-binary identity, I cannot. So then I don't. But it's such a
Yeah, and for me, like more than just like these institutions like museums, theaters, it's not for me as Moroccan non-binary refugee. And also like my art is reflection, is action against everyday violence I have. Like one of my performances is like talking about like being Muslim and being non-binary and all these debates you have in your brain and all these talks having on your brain. And every day you heard that your Islam is not valid because you're non-binariness, and your non-binariness is not valid because you are Muslim. So when you're going to talk about this, you are not welcome as Muslim on the media. You are not also welcome as non-binary person of color Moroccan. That's, what's going on in the media here. So like for my struggle, like I doesn't get a lot of opportunities as white kids. Sorry for saying this, but like white artists, I doesn't get the opportunities like them. Even like if I want to be on school, I just like I applied for school just this summer, and I arrived to the final round. You know what they told me to refuse? They say you are not neutral. Like you have your perceived and your exact political view and political way. So who is neutral? Is the white people who are neutral? White people who can analyze and
the people who design the system.
Exactly, like they want your art to be comment dire en français, séparé, separate of you. I cannot do l'abstrait. I am not doing my art just like fantasy.
And also the paradox.
I'm doing my art because I want to reclaim the space. I want the place for the voices who are not listening. I want to say, Black artists, trans Black artists, trans sex worker artists, myself, refugee artists, on these institutions, on these museums. We also need, like, our voices doesn't get hurted from years and years and years.
Yeah.
And now, these voices, like this white art, I don't know, I respect people, but I mean, like, it's the moment to the new generation of art, of people of color, of people from the bottom, to express to talk their truth, to say their voices. We need to hear these voices that we doesn't heard, but the repetition, dominated by white artists or white producer, because we are now talking about business. It's about business, and your art is not gonna make money. It's about critique. It's about evolution, is about revolution. We don't want revolution here. We want just to repeat, and we are happy, and happy Pride, blah, blah, blah. So this is the real things I'm going into, and this is the reflection I'm having. From who these places get created, for which art, what is which art they want, which art this institution we want. When we arrive to this point, then when unheard voices will be there, then we can talk that these places are real, exist for giving voices to people. But if we're gonna hear the repeats science a long time, it will be like
who designs the system. And I think the misconception is that media is somehow democratic, but there are still people who make decisions, who make executive decisions.
Democracy doesn't work.
Who decide what gets shown or not. And at TranScreen, we always say, we hope we're not necessary anymore. We hope for the day that our festival isn't necessary anymore, because we see a very transgender representation in all media, but we're still not there.
Mm-hmm.
So who's making these decisions? I think you want to say something, Chris.
Yeah, what I was thinking about the great paradox of this neutralness of art, and which is of course it's like, you say, as soon as you say I'm an activist, you cannot make art anymore. They say, like, no, you're an activist. You don't belong in the museum. And this is such an interesting thing, because at the same time, contemporary art and contemporary film and contemporary media is trying to show this image of critique of this. We are thinking very hard about society, but we're not activists. And as soon as you say, well, actually, I want to change something, then you're like, no, you cannot do this. And this is such I still have to find the way to make this arrive at the people who curate, at the people who make these decisions. Say, like, you are not neutral, and we cannot keep acting like you're neutral, because you're not, and it's okay you're not, but let everyone in then, let everyone in and be not neutral, because you cannot disentangle yourself from your art. You cannot disentangle your identity, your history from anything you make, and nobody can.
And also we heard a lot these times the word diversity, blah, blah, blah. who is representing the diversity?
Yeah, and also diversity from what?
Who is representing the diversity? Where is the diverse? We don't say a lot of colors. We just say one color there. They have different clothes, different states, a lot of money to make different things. But who can represent the diversity? Here's the people who can speak of themselves, who can speak for this, for their realities. This is the diversity. Diversity is not word. It's not. Maybe it's philosophic, philosophic, but it's not. It's not dominating this space and taking the space for the people who need to talk and to speak for themselves. And if we like, you can just go to the museums and you can say how it's so expensive. So poor people, they cannot go there. Trans poor people, they cannot go there. Like, I think like lots of things making, let's say, borders between the people and the access to institutions.
I want to go to our final Q&A. We got in a question from Facebook. David asks, what is the state of trans representation in the Netherlands compared to other countries? Is it better or worse? I see Chris
This is the wrong question. The question is, what can I do to improve the representation and inclusion of trans people?
And it's not about who's better or worse.
No.
Like everywhere on the world, trans people get, you know, like
sorry,
everyone
David.
know our situation. Right? It's not about better word. Also here in the Netherlands, there is transphobia. Also here in the media and the Netherlands, there is, this does include trans people. How many trans people we say every day on the TV? I don't have TV, sorry, but I can imagine how it's like. In the Netherlands and everywhere, the situation, it's not good for trans people and the representation of trans people.
And there are people who are working very hard on this, because we are now on Salto TV, we are with TranScreen, we have this, but we're not there yet. Even when Nikki Tutorials has her own show, we are not there yet. So let's work on that then.
Yeah.
Just the fact that we can name a couple of people shows that it's an exception instead of a rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any final questions from the audience, perhaps, present here? Everyone is just taking it all in. Any final comments from our panel?
What I think, what is interesting, if you look at this and you say like, okay, but what can I do? You can play a role in connecting trans creators, non-binary creators, queer creators with the people who govern, who curate, who make decisions in the fields they want to enter. I think this bridging and networking and creating the opportunities is one of the biggest things allies, as I might imperfectly call them, can do.
Yeah, for me also, everyone now our reality and our representation. And I just always like this word, like look into the future and build the future. As you say, like the community is now what's going on, what's happened. So I just like give all the energy to build the future, and the future will be built when we build strong community, strong network of the community, and the community that's offered for non-heard people their spaces. Let's sacrifice our privilege. Let's give voices to others, because I imagine the good representation of the future, the spaces we're gonna get when we will say the diversity really represent there. I wish this future will be so beautiful so I can see real colors going on there.
Yeah, I also want to state that in disclosure they say that the issue with transgender representation at the end is we just need more. We just need more. Yeah, so time flies, and unfortunately we're almost out of time. But before we leave, I would like to thank Chris and Mala for their contributions to the panel.
Thank you.
We also owe thanks to TransPride, Amsterdam Pride and Salto TV for organizing these days of Pride TV to recognize and celebrate the LGBTQ+ community. And finally, I want to thank you all. Without a community, there is no Pride Festival, and without a community, there is no TranScreen Film Festival. So I hope to see you all in 2021 for a new edition of TranScreen. It will be another festival filled with films, Q&As, parties, and more discussion panels like the one we had today. And I can already give you a little teaser. The themes we will center on next year are trends and sport, transgender youth, and gender in the ballroom scene. I hope to see you all next year at TranScreen, and for now, happy Pride.